Okay, welcome everybody. Very nice to have you here. Today I'd like to talk to you about something that I think is, not a big surprise. This will be very simple. I like simple. And I think that simple is where it's really at because simple is what gives results. That's one thing. If you like results, then that's good. Also, simple is something that you can get results with because you can actually implement it if you're willing. Whereas when things are really complicated, that's difficult to actually implement in your life unless you're willing to dedicate your entire life to that one thing, which is difficult for most of us to do. So, not that I suppose anything that I've just said is really important. Let's get to the important stuff. How about that? So, what I'd like to share with you today is about balancing the inner and the outer. And this is one of those things that is so easy um, to overlook the importance of, and also to just sort of forget about. And yet, if you come back to it regularly, then you will derive a lot of benefit from it. So the first thing is, well, let me just set the intention. So the intention for this meeting is to benefit you in your life so that you can experience more happiness, peace, joy, fulfillment, so that you can actually achieve the things that you want to achieve, and so that you could do that in a way that works well for you, in a way that allows you to really experience that sense of satisfaction within yourself that you're really doing what you're here for, rather than just doing stuff to distract yourself or occupy yourself. So I hope that sounds good to you. If not, then well, now you know, and you can make an informed choice as to whether or not this is going to be for you. So with that in mind, this idea of balancing inner and outer is really crucial to help you to achieve what you want. And part of this is because uh, it's if you want to achieve the things that you want to achieve, which presumably you do because you want to, then it's helpful to keep in mind that you can do that best if you do it in the most efficient way. That's one of those obvious things, right? You have many options available to you. You could do things in an inefficient way, and maybe you could achieve your outcome, but you would exert a lot more energy in order to achieve that than you would if you did it in a more efficient way. So this would be sort of like you could drive your car with one foot on the accelerator and one foot on the brakes, and it might work. You might get where you're going. I don't know if you've ever done this. I've done this before where I set the parking brake and then I forgot that I had set the parking brake and then I would drive with the parking brake. It destroys the parking brake. Um, so I know that it could work. I could get where I was wanting to go while having the parking brake set. I don't know about having one foot on the brakes and one foot on the accelerator, but um, it's not the most efficient way to do it, right? So even if it could work, and that's somewhat questionable, it is definitely not going to give you the most efficient results because you're working against yourself. So when you achieve something in the most efficient way, then that has a number of upsides, among them that you can actually still have energy left over for other things that you might want to put that energy toward. Um, Also, another benefit would be that when you achieve what you want in the most efficient way, then perhaps you can feel good about it rather than feeling not so good about it, right? If you think about if you wanted to walk, let's say you wanted to walk, go for a walk around your neighborhood. Now you could do that um, unencumbered. You could just go for a walk, and that would be one experience. And then you could imagine going for that walk by first getting a sizable boulder and then harnessing yourself to the boulder and then dragging the boulder Okay, so that would be a different way to do it. You would still accomplish, if you did accomplish it, the same thing, which would be to go for a walk, but it would clearly be a very different experience. And you might have you might feel different about that, right? So you could imagine how you might feel if you just went for a nice walk. Maybe after that, you would feel energized, invigorated, ready for whatever's next. Whereas if you harness yourself to the boulder and you drag that boulder, after that, you might be just done for the day. You just like, okay, I'm pooped. I'm gonna just take a nap. Um, so I am personally an advocate of doing things with efficiency because I believe that it gives better results. I found that it gives better results for me. So I think that it generally gives better results. I hope that I've painted that picture for you so that maybe you can see that that might be true for you as well. Of course, I don't want to take options away from you. Okay, I just want to offer new options to you. So you always have the option of doing things inefficiently. That's totally up to you. If you would like to do things inefficiently, maybe you have your own reasons for doing that. So I'm not trying to take that away from you, but I do want to add the option that you could also explore the possibility of doing things more efficiently. And when you have more options available to you, then that can often be useful because then you realize that you're not stuck. You could choose this thing, or you could choose that other thing, or hey, maybe there's a third option, maybe a fourth option. So now you know that there's a possibility that you could do things more efficiently, and uh, and that there might be benefits in doing things more efficiently. And this would apply to whatever you want to do in your life. Okay, so this would apply whether you want to go for a walk, like I suggested, or if you wanted to start a business, or you wanted to operate your existing business, or perhaps you wanted to start a relationship, or perhaps you wanted to continue an existing relationship. Whatever you wanted to do, anything in life, this would apply, eating breakfast, or making your bed, or going grocery shopping, or any of the kinds of things that you might want to do. Big things, little things, medium-sized things. You could do these things with greater efficiency or lesser efficiency. And to beat a dead horse, I will again propose that I believe there are benefits in doing things with greater efficiency. So this idea of balancing inner and outer can be very helpful in many regards, especially and in particular in regard to achieving things with greater efficiency. And I will explain why that might be. So um, there is a there's a law that governs creation, and you don't have to take my word for it, but I'm going to just share it with you, and then you can kind of just take a look in your own experience and see if it proves to be true. And that is that the inner creates the outer. Okay, so the inner creates the outer. And most of the time, many people have kind of reversed this. They think that the outer is where it's at, and the inner is really just a reaction or a response to that. And as a result, that leads to inefficiency, right? So if you were if you don't put things in the proper order and you're trying to work things in the incorrect order, then can you see how that might make things more difficult for you? If you were imagining that the way to organize if say you had a cart and a horse, and you imagined that the way to do that was to put the cart before the horse, as they say, right? Then you could see how well that works. Maybe it would work, but it might not give you optimal results. So when you put things in the optimal order, then you could expect possibly you would get better results that way, more efficient results. So I'm proposing that understanding, or at least reflecting upon this idea that the inner is the cause of the outer, can be useful to you, because then you can save yourself a lot of time and energy that would otherwise be wasted on trying to get results where you're not likely to get them. So what do I mean by inner and outer? I'm glad you asked. Well, the inner, it would be your subjective experience. So it would be your thoughts, your feelings, it would be your senses. Okay, so it's your perception would be the inner. And then the outer would be the so-called objective. So that would be, all the stuff out there, all the people out there, all the organizations out there, all the objects out there, all the events out there, all that kind of stuff. And so if you're thinking that in order to achieve what you want, you should put your attention primarily on the outer, then you could just see what kind of results that gives you. Maybe you've done a lot of that in your life. Maybe you've tried to organize your life with an outer focus so that you think, okay, in order to get what I want, I'm going to need to uh, persuade people. I'm going to need to manipulate situations. I'm going to need to take all kinds of outer actions. And that's how I'm going to achieve what I want. So if you have organized your life in that way, which is how most of us have been taught to do it, then you can just see what kind of results that gives you. And for most people, what that gives is mixed results. So sometimes people are, for whatever reason, they things work out well enough for them, and they say, "Look, it's working," so they keep doing that. And if it keeps working well enough, then they have no real reason to do it any differently. And then what can happen is those people will tell others, they'll say, "Look, this is how I do it. It's working very well. Just do it like me," right? So come to, look how strong I am. You would like to be strong like me. Come to my gym. I will teach you how to be strong like me. You can do the things like I do, and you'll become strong just like me. The only problem is it doesn't usually give the same kind of results for consistently for others. And and that would apply. I'm just using the example of the gym and getting strong. This is like, with finances, so health, finances, relationship, all the kind of stuff that people want to achieve in their lives. If they focus on the outer stuff, then they get mixed results. So some people seem to get good results, some people get so-so results, and some people just can't get any good results at all, right? Try as they might. And I'm sure you might know people like that. Maybe you are like that in some ways in your own life, right? Maybe there are some areas of your life where you've tried and tried and tried, right? You tell yourself, well, I've read all the books, I've listened to all the podcasts, I've taken the workshops, I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm not getting the results in this area of my life, whether that's the finances or the relationships or the health or whatever it might be. So you've tried the outer stuff. You've done, the 5 steps to get the results, and you're not eating the 3 foods that you're not supposed to eat, and you're doing all the things that you think you're supposed to do in order to get the results, and still you're not getting the results. And so then you might scratch your head and you say, well, what's going on here? Why am I not getting the results? Or you could be trying really, really hard and you get some results, but they're not really, it's like you're not getting the results that you think you should, given the amount of effort that you're putting in. So, have you ever had experiences like that? Does that resonate with anybody here? Have you ever had that kind of experience where you put in the effort and then you either don't get the results that you were expecting? Got one yes, so that's good. At least one person. I'm speaking it to at least one right person. I got 2 people. Okay, so some people here are the right people. Good. So so sometimes you put in the effort and you get some results. Sometimes you put in the effort and you don't seem to get any results really to speak of, except for maybe you just kind of exhaust yourself or frustrate yourself. Hopefully, or I don't know about hopefully, but sometimes maybe in some areas of your life you do get some results. If you didn't get any results, that'd be tough. but the problem with that is that if you get some results in some area of your life, then it can sometimes lead you to believe that you could just get all the results in all areas of your life if only you would just try hard enough with all the outer stuff. If you would just read the right books and go to the right workshops and just get up early enough and run for long enough and do enough pull-ups and eat enough spinach and hustle, 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 then you're going to get the love and the money and the six-pack abs and all the rest of it. And then it's just not really working out. So the good news is that the upside of not getting satisfactory results in at least some areas of your life is it might cause you to show up at a meeting like this, where then somebody proposes, hey, there is another way. Did you consider this option? Which is that the inner is actually what causes the outer. And this is really good news, actually. This is fantastic news because what it means is that you have the power within you to be able to get the results that you want. And you don't have to rely on outer things in order to get those results. What you can do is you can focus on where you have that power within yourself. And that is something that you can do through the power of your awareness so that you can start to become aware of what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're believing, what you're holding in consciousness. Okay. Because that's what produces your outer experience, is what you're holding in consciousness. So the truth is that everything that we experience on the outside is actually just a reflection of what we're holding in consciousness. So it is a reflection of your beliefs and your habits, your internal habits. Your habits of how you perceive. It's your habits of how you think. It's your habits of how you the kinds of the habits of feeling as well. So this is where you have the real leverage. So I use this term often, or I have in the past used this term of leverage often, and I'm going to use it a little bit today because leverage is really powerful. So if you don't know anything about leverage, I'll just give you a really brief rundown on how that works. So perhaps you've had the experience as a child of using something at a playground, which is in English sometimes called a teeter-totter and sometimes called a seesaw. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you could Google it and you'd probably get the idea of what I'm talking about. But it's a lever. And so it allows if you've used something like this, then you'll have the actual experience that you can feel into so that you can know the power of leverage. So the way that I'll call it a teeter-totter works is that there are two sides to it, and then there's what's called a fulcrum. Okay, the fulcrum is that point where the lever rests. So for a teeter-totter, usually it could be anything. It could be a rock, it could be whatever, but there'll be some fulcrum. And now if the fulcrum is directly in the middle of the lever, then if you put something of equal weights on either side, equidistant from the fulcrum, then it will be perfectly balanced. And so neither side will go up nor down. It'll just be perfectly balanced. But if you were to move the fulcrum, let's say closer to one of the sides and further from one of the other sides, then what happens is that the side that is closer to the fulcrum will go up because of this force of leverage. And so this is the power, is that actually if you've ever then we've all used leverage. We use leverage all the time. Our arms are often used as as levers. And so we can use leverage in order to, pry and wedge and do all of these really amazing things that we take for granted in everyday life. But they're really, really powerful because then what we can do is we can exert relatively small amounts of force, but we can get much more out of it. So it's sort of magic. And so you could actually use leverage to do incredible things. You can lift incredible loads with leverage. Um, and so um, why am I mentioning this? Because when you understand the importance of inner causes outer, this allows you to start to use leverage. So if you were to try to accomplish everything in your life only with outer focus, only by doing the outer things, then you're actually leverage is actually working against you, which means that you have to exert an enormous amount of force in order to get the results. And this is why some people can get the results. There are a couple of reasons why some people can get the results. One reason is just naturally some people are already aligned within themselves. They're already thinking in the right ways and feeling in the right ways and believing in the right ways and all that. They're already doing enough correctly within themselves, not necessarily consciously, in order to have enough leverage. But another thing is that some people, for whatever reason, they just have an enormous, enormous amount of willpower. And so they can use that as this force in order to get what they want. Not because they're doing it efficiently, but just because they're utilizing their willpower. Now, for better or for worse, some of us don't have that kind of willpower. Okay? And so we could just throw our arms up and say, in despair, and just say, well, woe is me, I'll never succeed in life because I don't have willpower. The only way to succeed is with willpower. But what I'm telling you is that you can achieve incredible things without huge amounts of willpower when you understand how to use leverage to your advantage. And that is by focusing on the inner where you have the leverage. So if you think about, if this image of a teeter-totter is useful for you, then you could think about it as, if you've ever had that experience with using a teeter-totter when maybe, you were like the little kid and then there was like the parent was doing the teeter-totter with you, or like the big kid was doing the teeter-totter with you, or maybe you like had 5 kids piled up on the other side and you on the one side. And so you have this experience where you know that with leverage to your advantage, you can move those greater masses. And so when you think about shifting your attention to inner, then you can think about how you can start to move great masses in your life with relatively small amounts of force. So that's the power of it. So now, practically speaking, how does one go about making changes at the inner level? Well, that would be the topic of many, many talks, not just one talk, but I'm going to give you some useful, hopefully useful, practical pointers that you can begin to work with today. So the very first most important thing is that you must be aware, because if you're not aware, then you can't change anything. And this is true whether your focus, wherever your focus is, if your focus is inner or outer. If you're not aware, you can't hope to make any change. So awareness is always key. And yet it's one of the things that's often most overlooked. People are trained these days to just rely on formulas, and that's that can work, but it works when it works, and when it doesn't work, then if that's all you know how to do, then you are, as they say, SOL. So better, in my view, to have the to have the power of awareness on your side. because when you have the power of awareness, then you are not reliant on the formulas. Of course, the formulas can still be useful when they are useful. And if what I'm saying to you does not make any sense, it's sort of like the difference between giving a man a fish and teaching a man a fish. Okay. So if you give a man a fish, it's sort of like a formula. So a formula would be, uh, you know, try to think of a kind of formula that we use. The formula would be like, we have all kinds of social rituals, right? So I'm gonna, if I call you on the phone, I guess it doesn't work this way anymore, but it used to be, if I would call you on the phone, you would answer the phone. This was, back before texts and all the rest of it. But if I would call you on the phone, you would answer the phone if you didn't have caller ID. If you had caller ID, you would never answer a call from me. But if you didn't have caller ID and you were unsuspecting, and I would call you up, you would answer the phone and say, hello. And I would say, hello. And we go through a little ritual, right? And I say, hi, this is Joey. How are you? And you would say, oh, Joey, it's so nice to hear from you. And we do this little exchange. Okay, so there are rituals. These are formulas where we have expectations, and we know to follow the formula, and it's going to give us the results. If you go to the restaurant, you hopefully know the formula for how to place your order. If you can't figure that out, it's gonna be tough, right? It's like, how do you do it? You don't know. You're gonna be hungry. But if you know the formula, if you know how it works at that restaurant, maybe you wait to be seated, or maybe it's not that kind of place. Maybe you wait in line. But if you know the formula and you know where the menu is and you know how to read the menu and then you know how to place the order, then you can get what you want, which is the food. So we have all of these formulas, and it's great when the formulas work for us. However, what if the formula breaks down? Imagine that you are in a foreign place and you don't understand, you don't read the language, you don't speak the language, you don't understand the rituals of the place. Well, now you don't have the formulas. You don't know what to do. Right? So now how are you going to figure this out? Well, if you're reliant completely on formulas, you would throw up your hands and say, woe is me, I'm SOL, I'll never figure this out. I guess I'll just starve to death. But if you're more resourceful than that, then you will use your awareness to figure it out, right? You will SOL is shit out of luck. Somebody wanted to know. See, there's one of those, it's a cultural thing. Somebody else thanks me for this. So um, but through the power of awareness, you would be able to figure it out. Now, that would take you however long it would take, right? Maybe you would figure it out in 5 minutes. Maybe it would take you 5 hours. Maybe it'd take you longer than that. But if you're determined, if you're clear that you want what you want, and you know that it is possible for you to achieve that, then you use the power of awareness and you will figure it out. So we can do the same within, and this can give us really good results. So a lot of the time, though, what happens is that the inside is sort of like a foreign land. We don't speak the language, we don't know the customs, so we go there and we're like, I don't know what to do. I don't. My formulas are breaking down. I guess I'm just SOL. And so we, then do the things that we all do, right? You Google it, you search YouTube, you text your friends to complain about how life's not fair. You do the things that you do, hoping that somehow something's going to change. But um, there's another way, which is what I'm proposing, which is that you could use the power of awareness within, and then you could discover new options available to you that could give you better results. So that's the most important thing. And that's probably one of the things that, because it's not exactly formulaic, then this is where a lot of people get frustrated because they'll say, and I'm going to say this, and then I'm pretty sure somebody's gonna leave a comment on YouTube and they're gonna say, "But how do I do it?" Okay, which I understand because it seems like a really good question. I really understand, but this is the thing that people are gonna say. People are gonna say, "How do I do it?" And so, in order, so this is where it's where you have to be willing to stretch yourself a little bit. Okay, just a little bit, and say, "Okay, so maybe my old ways are not giving me the results that I want." And so maybe then the way that I've been approaching things, the way I've been thinking about it, the way that I have been dependent on formulas for people to tell me how do I do it, um, has some limitations that I'm running up against. And so in order to overcome this challenge, I'm going to need to be willing to really approach this differently. And so um, that's the first thing is just to know that this may require that you learn something, and learning something is to actually learn something, not just to memorize a formula, but to actually learn something is a process that requires your full engagement and your awareness. So think about in your life, absolutely for sure, you have learned things. And I'm using this term right now, I'm differentiating this from just mere memorization. Not that memorization doesn't have its place, it does, but I'm making a distinction between memorizing a pattern and actually learning something. Because to learn something requires that you're really engaged and curious and that your awareness is involved in this. So you have to actually be looking and observing and noticing without without knowing. You see, there's a process in learning where you have to go from not knowing to knowing. And that's, I think, um, one of the things that will oftentimes hold people back from learning is that in order to learn, it's required first that you admit to yourself that you don't already know. And that can be a little scary, maybe a lot scary, because then it's sort of like being in a foreign place where you don't speak the language, you don't know the customs, and you don't have that kind of security blanket of, well, I know how to figure it all, I know everything, I can read all the signs and yada yada yada, because you don't. It's like, wow, I don't know what any of this means. I don't really even understand. I mean, just imagine uh, being just finding yourself in some culture where it's so foreign to you that you don't understand anything about what's happening. You don't understand what the expressions on other people's faces mean. So you're not able to pick up on those cues. I mean, just imagine that. Well, here's the interesting thing is we all kind of we had that experience very early on in life. Think about that. We were all just sort of dropped in and it's like, okay, good luck. But you didn't speak the language. You didn't understand the customs. You didn't understand anything. And you couldn't go anywhere because you couldn't walk. But you see, you figured it out. You learned. So we all have the capacity. Uh, so so that's really an important tip in my view is to actually be willing to set yourself up for success by admitting that you don't know something. Because again, if you don't set yourself up in that way, then you're not actually setting yourself up to learn. Sort of like the idea that you have to empty your bowl if you want to receive. So if you approach your life and you say, I've already got it figured out, I already know. then you're not really in a position to learn. All you're in a position to do is sort of just add in more formulas. You're just kind of cobbling together something, but it's never really going to be founded on a real knowing. So set yourself up for success by admitting from the get-go that you don't know what you don't know. Um, and if you think about it, one thing that can be really helpful in that process is to have some kind of, we'll say, foundation. Because I use this, um, I use this analogy of, I didn't make it explicit, but I'll make it explicit now. When you were born, you didn't speak the language, you didn't understand the customs. Okay, so at birth, you were in a situation where you didn't know. And maybe that would be terrifying if you were not grounded in um, some kind of deeper knowing or connection. And maybe for many of us, those who are fortunate in this regard, which would be most of us, I think, we had some kind of bond with a parent. Okay, so that probably is helpful, but um, you could think about what is the parent, the earthly parent, is sort of a surrogate for some, let's say, a mm, a a greater parent. So we could think about what is it that we can actually have a connection to that provides us with that stability, uh, with that sense of safety amid not knowing, right? So imagine that again, you find yourself in this environment where you don't speak the language, you don't know the culture. How could you, what could you actually connect to that would give you a foundation to be able to open up to learn, to actually admit that you don't know what you don't know? Because a lot of the time, for many of us, our 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 claim to knowing something is this way that we try and give ourselves a sense of security in life. You know, if I know all these things, I can look at how smart I am. I know that the capital of the United States is Washington, D.C. I know that the tallest mountain in the world is Mount Everest. I know, all the things that we know. And we're like, look, I'm safe because I know all these things. Um, but all that stuff is really, it's a false security. So that kind of always is going to produce an insecurity underlying everything. So is there the question, the invitation here is there can you discover a connection to something which is uh, which is always here, which is completely reliable, even more reliable than the earthly parent? Because I was suggesting that those of us who have been blessed to have been born with a parent who can provide some, even if imperfect, sense of connection and security, that's imperfect and temporary, no matter how wonderful your parents were. So, and it's not going to serve you forever, right? If when you're 50 years old, and if you find yourself in some foreign place where you don't speak the language or understand the culture, um, you know, probably mommy and daddy are not going to be able to solve that for you. So, in order to offer yourself the setup for success where you can admit that you don't know what you don't know so that you could actually learn, then is there a connection to something greater that can offer you that foundation, that connection and security so that you can actually allow yourself to open up? Because if you feel that you're completely dependent upon your own devices, which are just the things that you think you've learned over time to protect you, then if you actually set that down, lay down your guard for a moment to be able to actually open up, to receive, to be willing to actually learn, then you're so vulnerable that can be a very difficult position to be in unless you actually have a sense of being connected to something greater. So that can be really useful. Um, that's 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 in many ways that's even more foundational than anything else. So that's something that I would encourage you to explore. If you want to have more options in life, to just explore that to see what is it that is there some way that I can experience connection to something greater that can offer me a sense of connection and security that transcends everything that I've otherwise depended upon for my sense of connection and security, which ultimately has not given me the results that I want. In other words, if the things that I've depended upon for my sense of security, which might be, my the the strength and wellness of my body, or my finances, or my relationships and connections with other humans, um, my intellectual knowledge. Okay, all these things these are the kinds of things that many of us have depended upon for our sense of security in life. But all of those things are temporary. They're ultimately unreliable. You can't depend on those forever and in all situations because they come and they go, right? I mean, the money comes and goes, the body comes and goes, the relationships come and go, all that stuff comes and goes. If you didn't know that, sorry to break it to you, but better sooner rather than later, I think. And so, and I'm not saying that it's not nice to have those things. Of course it is, right? So I'm not discouraging you from having those things. In fact, I think that it's very useful to have many of those things, but also to have the understanding that they do come and go. So they cannot provide the ultimate security. So, um, so the invitation then is to discover that connection and security which transcends all of those things. And that's quite an invitation. I wasn't really anticipating going there today, but I guess I have. So there it is. But it's quite an invitation. It's a very powerful invitation, and it's probably not one of those things that you're likely to very quickly come up with a neat answer to. Right? It's a bit messy because you really have to start. It's an invitation to undo many things, to undo your identifications and attachments to many things, so that you can find that which is um, ultimately more empowering, which gives you more freedom, more leverage. Because think about it, if you depend on, like remember I don't know if they still, there was like the American Express advertising. It's like American Express, where I don't remember what the slogan was, but the idea is like American Express, it's going to take you wherever you want to go. But it's like, there's some places where American Express is not accepted, right? I mean, come on, let's be real. Probably most of the places that are worth going, there's no American Express accepted there. No, I mean, I'm sure there are some places worth going where American Express is accepted, but many places worth going. American Express will not take you there. And for the people who are scratching their heads, like, what are you talking about, American Express? It's just it's a credit card. Um, so if you're depending on American Express, if you're depending on your bank account, if you're depending upon your network of friendships and business relationships and whatever else, if you're depending on your marriage, if you're depending on your relationships with your children, if you're whatever you might be depending upon for your sense of okayness, for your identity in life, um, just notice that that results in insecurity because there are places where that's not going to be able to take you. Um, one of my early teachers, Papaji, once said that he says, when you go to sleep at night, even if you even if you hold the hand of your spouse while you're going to sleep, you can't you can't take them into sleep. You have to go alone, right? So there are places you have to go without clinging to those things that you've clung to. Uh, and so but it's really powerful to discover that because it's very liberating because then that offers you that foundation, that platform where you have that ultimate leverage. So that would be, I guess, the baseline, the very most important thing would be to explore that and discover that. And now people are going to say, but how do I do that? Well, many ways. I mean, one way that this will not come as a surprise to anybody who's been around here before, breath awareness could be really helpful because when you just allow yourself to be aware of the breath, and I know some people are going to say, but how do I do that? So just, I'm going to explain, these are the instructions. Just be aware of your natural breathing. And if you consider your breathing to be unnatural, then just be aware of your unnatural breathing. And then just be curious and open to natural breathing. And then maybe be curious and open to maybe there's no real difference between natural and unnatural breathing. You see, it's an open, curious exploration, just with breath as the focus, just noticing the breath, noticing the inhalation and then the transition and then the exhalation and then the transition and just being really curious about that, just noticing. And as you explore that, which you can do anytime, you could do that right now. You could do that while you're lying in bed, waiting to fall asleep. You could do that when you're washing the dishes. You could do that anytime, right? Um, just with curiosity, you might start to discover really amazing things. Like you might start to discover that, gee whiz, um, there's something here that I seem to be. I seem to be this something here that is not any of the things that I thought I was or that I thought uh, were what determined how things were like measured in life. Right? That, like you'll start to notice that maybe there'll be moments where there's no time. Maybe there's moments where there's no thought. Maybe there's moments where there's no uh, um, bodily sensations. And these might just be for, split second. But as you just notice that, what's amazing about that, or one thing that's amazing about that is there could be this arising realization that's like, well, I'm here, right? Isn't that, think about how amazing that is. You're here, even though the other things are not. So then if you're not, I mean, if you're here when something else is not here, then you can't be that thing, right? So then the question might arise, well, then who am I? If I'm not that thing, if I'm not the thoughts, if I'm not the breath, if I'm not the body, if I'm not the feelings, if I'm not the things, well, who am I? And this can directly connect you to this greater presence, the realization that you're okay. I mean, think about how freeing that could be. If you know, if you're not dependent on a body or thoughts or feelings or sensations or any of the stuff, then think about how free you are. Now, this is not to say that, of course, the next moment you get pinched and you say, ow, it hurts. I don't like that. Right. So, of course, I'm not saying that you should aspire necessarily to just, let it all go. But I'm saying as a foundation, it can be that jumping off point that can allow you to explore freely so that you now can let go of what you previously claimed to know that you don't really know, and that this offers you this new opportunity to really learn. So covering a lot more than I thought today, and amazingly, probably without making any sense to most people. And not to you. Makes sense to you, but there's 87 people here, and that means there's a lot of people who are not here, and it doesn't make any sense to them. Um, so okay, so the first thing would be to just offer yourself that opportunity to connect to that which is greater than who and what you have imagined yourself to be. And just let it be a light exploration. Don't turn this into a heavy thing where it's like sometimes people do this and then they freak out, right? They're like, "Oh, I'm this is one. This is a popular one. I'm all alone." I did that one for a while. I'm all alone. It's so terrible. I'm all alone. If that happens, if that comes up, just know. So allow yourself to just explore openly, to let go of whatever you think you know, right? Because that idea that, and if that makes no sense to you, that's good for you. But for some people, that will make sense because some people have that concern. They're like, I'm all alone. It's the worst thing. But that's something you think you know, right? And by clinging to that, it limits you. So notice how liberating it could be to just let go, not to get rid of it, but just to be willing to let go of the certainty that you know anything about that. And then this could open you to a discovery of what you previously had not realized was even there. And this can be a real learning. So it's not just a memorization of a formula that somebody else gives you, because somebody else can give you the formula, right? Somebody can say, we're all one, it's all one, yada, yada, da, da, da. And that can be like a narcotic that you can use for a while where you're like, oh, isn't it nice? We're all holding hands. We're all one. God is one. God is love. Da, 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 da. Oh, I'm so happy. But then it strikes you, you're like, I'm all alone. And you feel, this terror. So then, okay, so let go of what you think you know, let go of the formulas. And then, okay, there's the direct reality of what's actually here, which is not aloneness. Aloneness is an overlay, it's an idea that it's the polarity of we're all one, right? We're all one, I'm all alone. We're all one, I'm all alone. You can bounce back and forth between those polarities for a long time and suffer greatly. Or you could finally allow yourself the freedom of not knowing and then learning. And that learning is not a formula. It could be turned into a formula, right? Because you could have that realization and then you could decide you're going to start your own YouTube channel and you're going to share with the world. We're all one. We're not, there's no loneliness. We're all one. And then people will say, well, they'll chant, we're all one, we're all one, we're all one. It's the new formula. But for you, the realization is authentic. It's not a formula. It's because you've learned it. So this is the inner. This is the focus on the inner. I was intending something a little bit different today. I was going to talk about. I did the setup for it was going to be a balance about the inner and the outer. Um, I barely just scratched the surface of the inner because we went so kind of deep in a direction that I was not exactly anticipating, but that's where it went. So I trust that that was where it was that for the best. Um, so hopefully I did not blow your minds in some sort of unpleasant way for you. Hopefully this was gentle and reassuring, and so that's it. So just to recap, um, bring more attention to the inner. Just to round it out, I'll say the punchline here, which maybe we'll get to some other day, was that it is a balance. Okay, so I'm not advocating for taking no outer action. That's its own problem. So don't think that I'm suggesting just sit on your keister and just be one, be that's nice and all. And if that gives you the results that you want, that's fine and good. But for most of us, it is a balance because there will be outer actions that will arise to take, when the bills come, probably if you want to keep the house, pay the bills, I mean, so there are outer actions. If you're married and you'd like to stay married, you know, probably useful to respond to your spouse when they try to communicate with you, things like that. So there are outer actions that it's useful and appropriate to take, but most of us have erred on the side of too much focus on the outside and not enough attention on the inside. And so the putting more attention on the inside and noticing through awareness that you can learn, that you can actually just learn and discover, because life is actually presenting you with the opportunities. Really, really is. It's amazing that life it's consistent. Life is presenting exactly the opportunities for exactly the learning that you most deeply desire. And I mean, it's really perfect in that way. But you have to be willing to do your part by putting the attention there. So that's all I got for today. I mean, I could go on and on, but I won't. So for those who are here live, I'm happy to stay on for the group coaching, which we will do momentarily. And I just want to say a few words for people who see this on YouTube. If you've gotten this far, that's fantastic. Then I invite you to stick around and join in more often, which you can do by watching on YouTube. I post these weekly. I also host these meetings live on Mondays. And if you're interested in joining these live, like the now 89 people who are here presently, then you're welcome to do that. And you can get that information by signing up for my newsletter on my website, which is joeylott.com. And you can get that link in the description, which I will post on YouTube. And if you are interested in a system, a complete system to help you to achieve your goals in a harmonious way in your life, to experience more fulfillment and peace and happiness, you may be interested in the Manifesting Truth program, which I offer. It is a paid program, and you can get more information about that at joeylott.com/manifesting-truth. Again, the link will be in the description. And so for those who are watching this on YouTube, blessings to you, and bye for now. And I'm going to end the recording.